The first chapter of the next phase of the Walking Dead universe is finally here with Dead City. So is it a promising start, or is it more of the same Walking Dead spin-off quality that we're used to seeing? In today's video, I'll be answering that question and breaking down the first episode of Dead City. These aren't going to be like my typical episode analysis videos. I don't think I can use a lot of the footage to recap an episode that's so new, so I'll be going over the episode, theories for next week, and the series as a whole. The good, the bad, you get the gist. The first episode of Dead City saw Maggie looking for Negan because she needs him to get her son back from a man named the Croat. The Croat is an ex-savior, and he's taken Herschel into the one place that you really don't ever want to be, apocalypse or not, called New York City. So they head into the city, being chased by a group of new marshals from a place called New Babylon. Marshals who are, of course, looking for Negan. So let's hop right into the breakdown of episode 1 of Dead City, Old Acquaintances. Right away, this show feels different than any other season of The Walking Dead. The pacing is much better, the cinematography is better, even the writing is more on par with the earlier seasons of The Walking Dead than the later seasons. The pacing is, I think, the big one, and that's mainly because this season is only gonna be 6 episodes. This is like a huge, monumental difference than the 16 or 20 plus episodes that we've been used to seeing over the recent years. The pacing kinda has to move forward because they need to get to telling the story they want to tell. Having a 6-episode season reminds us of the 6-episode first season of the show, when the pacing was smooth and fluid, and I really think that decision for there to be less episodes is a great change. If the show was gonna be 16 episodes, then the end of this episode would have shown us Maggie and Negan finally meeting again, and then like the mid-season finale would be them getting into Manhattan. So this quick pace really breathes new life into this franchise, and it's a very refreshing breath of air. This episode really does everything that a pilot episode should do. It sets up the characters, the problem that they're facing, the location, and it does it all very well. New York City really is a great location and differentiates itself greatly from the deep southern locations that we're used to seeing. I live near New York City and I already hate going there, so seeing them travel in here during the apocalypse was actually incredibly scary, but that might have just been due to my own experiences with the city, but I think that they did a really great job showcasing that this is really not a place that you want to be. One of the new additions to the show is a new intro, which seems obvious they weren't going to use the same one as The Walking Dead, but there's also a new song. This might seem small, but I almost figured that they were going to try and use the exact same intro song, just like House of the Dragon did with the Game of Thrones intro, kind of remind people of the good memories of the original show, but they decided to go a different route, and I think that's a really great decision. But now it's time to put on the tinfoil hat, because we got these bad boys to go over. A point that's been talked about a lot is Negan's wife and kid. Maggie asks what happened to them, but Negan declines to answer. Now, if this were just gonna be some simple plot point, he would have just answered, "Oh, she left me, they died." He could have just answered something like that, but he didn't. So this answer has to be leading to some kind of big reveal. What exactly is this reveal going to be? Well, let's talk about the villain of the series, the Croat. The Croat was one of Negan's saviors back in its heyday, and Negan says that he ran with a lot of bad people, but the Croat was one of the worst ones. The Croat seems to be channeling his inner Negan, going around to different communities and taking stuff, saying they'll be back in a month to take more, and even taking someone as collateral. Negan took Daryl, the Croat took Herschel. But is this really just some random act that he did? Did he choose Herschel just because he was there, or is there more to his plan? I believe that there has to be more to his plan, because at the end of the episode, we see the Croat talking to Herschel not only about Negan, but Maggie as well. He says that Negan was among his mother's people for years, so the Croat knows all about who Maggie is, which would make sense if he was a savior and was around for all-out war, but he knows that Negan was eventually around our group for years afterwards, living amongst them. Now, he could just be talking about how he was taken prisoner, but he didn't say that he was a prisoner for years. He said that he lived among them, which makes me think that the Croat knows a lot more than he let out in that moment. So what am I really saying with all of this? The the Croat took Herschel as a way to ultimately get Negan into the city. I think that the Croat is responsible for the deaths of Negan's wife and child, and we'll get that big reveal later this season. Maybe the Croat was hoping that killing Negan's wife and child would lead him into the city, but it didn't, so he took Herschel using the tactics of the Saviors, thinking that Maggie would go to Negan for help, and all of this really is just an elaborate trap. Why does the Croat want Negan? What's the purpose? At the time, I'm really not too sure. The Croat does have a burn mark on the right side of his face on his ear, so could this have been from the iron back at the sanctuary? It's possible, and I think probable. Is the Croat doing all this simply for revenge? Possibly, but I hope not probably, because there has to be some other kind of scheme or plan. But I guess we'll wait until next week to see if this theory has any kind of weight behind it. Another thing I want to bring up is New Babylon and the Marshals. Pearly Armstrong is set up to be a pretty great character already. He seems to live by the law and have a strict code, but accidentally killing one of his own marshals isn't exactly going to bode well for him. So I'm excited to see how this affects his character and ultimately where he ends up. But the very existence of these marshals and this New Babylon place is very interesting. There's nothing from the comics or anything like that called New Babylon, so this is a new addition to the show and this universe as a whole. These marshals also seem to have a great reach around the country. If they're stationed in New York and they're searching for Negan because of his past crimes down in Virginia, where else do these marshals reach? Are they perhaps sanctioned by another bigger group of people? Alright, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, or maybe I shouldn't get too ahead of myself. But these marshals offer something new and interesting to this world, and I hope we get to learn more about them. Pearly Armstrong also mentions that Negan executed a man in front of his pregnant wife, but doesn't mention anything about how he killed another man just before him. So even in this show, Abraham's death is getting sidelined, as if Glenn's death didn't outshine him enough, Abraham's death doesn't even get a mention here. Speaking of Glenn's death, we do get this nightmare flashback sequence just to reinstate Maggie and Negan's history, probably for new viewers of the show, and because there's bound to be some new viewers, we don't get a ton of mentions to the previous show, but there's actually still more than I thought there would be. There's obviously the mention of Annie and Negan's kid, and the bigger mention of Hilltop. Maggie says that they had to relocate, so did they all really relocate to New York? Or was this somewhere in between Virginia and New York and Maggie and Negan were traveling for like days together? That's not very clear, but this begs the question, if they did move to New York, what happened to everybody else at the New Commonwealth or Alexandria? I don't really think this is a question that will get answered. I think they're focused on telling the story in New York and not mentioning anywhere else, partly to accommodate the new viewers, but it's still a question that I have. So our central characters of the show, Maggie and Negan, they left off in season 11 on a pretty good note as far as their history is concerned. Maggie more or less kind of forgave Negan and saw that he was becoming a better person, but at the start of this show, Maggie kind of reverted this decision and is now back to being bitter old Maggie. Now, this is addressed in the episode. Negan says that she's been taking jabs at him ever since they saw each other again, and he thought that what was in the past, but clearly she's not over it now. Negan is really over Maggie's bitterness, same as me, honestly, and there's a moment that he says enough is enough, like how many husbands and fathers have you killed before? And at the end of the episode, she almost kills Pearly Armstrong, who just told her that he's a father and his girls are his entire world. Negan kind of gives her this look and she stops. This is something that's been missing from the proper show for a very long time, and that was really kind of the through line of the episode. There aren't really any bad guys anymore. Everybody's a bad guy because of what they've survived and what they had to do to survive at this point. That conversation and that writing has been missing for seasons and years of the show, and I really hope there's more brilliant writing like this going forward. How will their dynamic change over the course of the season? Well, it seems that they're captured by an old witch right now, so I'm not too sure. Are we just gonna rehash their season 11 plotline and at the end of the season we'll just get this scene over again? I really hope not, but I'd also take a redo of this scene over something, like this. Overall, I think that this is a very strong start for the future of this franchise. Enough of the filler episodes and plots. Give us a full season of the forward-moving plot great writing and dialogue and a direction for this universe going forward. The direction of the universe is still kind of up in the air. Will this series try and connect somehow with the Daryl Dixon show or the Rick and Michonne show? That's yet to be seen, but right now I'm nothing but optimistic about Dead City and the future of this universe. What are your thoughts on the first episode of Dead City? What are your theories going forward? Let me know down in the comments below, as well as your overall thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave it a like and subscribe for more content like this. Special thanks to my channel members. You guys are the absolute best, and you guys are the first to see this video. So if you want to see videos early like them, become a channel member. You get lots of exclusive perks depending on the tier, so check it out by hitting that join button. Special thanks to these guys right here, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Yeah.